which if we follow the Constitution, we know are not. So as Attorney General, how far would you go to take on the federal government when they encroach upon the states in that area? That's my question.
Right. Well, let me say this. I mean, when you look at, and I know, David, you and I might have, how do I say this? I know in principle and in concept, you and I are probably 99% on the same page, but what I'm about ready to say, you probably won't want to agree, okay? So, I think it's very difficult. I mean, one of the first things I said about Dana Nessel is that she came in and said, I'm going to determine which laws I will and will not defend, or which ones I won't execute. And I think it's very, very dangerous if you have an attorney general that's just going to say, I'm going to choose which crimes I do enforce and which ones I don't. Now, do I believe that the federal government ought to be involved in drug crimes? No, I don't. And I've been clear about that. In fact, I was doing an interview on an issue, and they just asked me, it was the day after, or maybe a few hours after Jeff Sessions said that he was going to reinstitute, I don't know if you saw this, he was going to start potentially going after marijuana crimes in states. And they asked me what my position was on that, and I said, I believe the Attorney General needs to back off. I believe this is a state's issue. However, the federal courts have ruled that he has a constitutional right to do that if he wants to. So, in terms of, I can tell him to back off all day, but if he's coming in here, I don't know how in the world you bring charges against, federal agents.
What your county sheriffs are for. That's their role. I mean, if you talk to guys like Sheriff Mack in Arizona, if you talk to, Arpaio, and I think, where's Mack from? Mack was Arizona too, right? There's a handful of sheriffs that will actually stand up to these folks and do their damn jobs. What we need are more politicians who understand the proper roles that they're seeking and do their jobs. That's the, and so when you say there's all, in theory we agree, why is it then that there are people and public servants that are willing to do those things and public servants that are not willing to do those things? So when you say you can't, I have an issue there, because I'm going to tell you what, when you talked about civil asset forfeiture and you said no civil asset forfeiture, I call it civil asset theft, okay, without a conviction, you know who you're going to have to go to and explain that to? You're going to have to go to the inner cities and explain that to the people who get hit the hardest.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the inner cities, because they can't afford good defense. And convicted of a felony, to just do it, when you're talking about using drugs, you can be convicted of a felony, like equal to somebody shooting another individual, okay, in this country, and they can come and steal all of your property. I have a real hard time with that, and I don't know how you sell that in the city of Detroit, in Westland, and in a lot of these communities in Wayne County, where those folks are going to get hit the hardest, along with Flint, along with Saginaw, and some of those other areas. So just, I don't know if I'm looking for an answer here, but that's my feeling on it.
But I just want to clarify something.
Sure.
So I'm sorry. So how was the legislation that I was talking about supporting not good for the folks in your cities? That's what
That's perfectly fine. I'm just saying, as Attorney General, under the current law, the way it's currently set up right now, you can talk about all of what you're going to support. Maybe it passes, maybe it doesn't. But I'm saying right now, we are convicting people of felonies for nonviolent crimes. Nonviolent crimes. And they're going to jail. They're losing their right to vote. And when they get out, they can't get work, right? And the government is now taking their property. And what I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to reconcile, is that when you say defend the Constitution, that means defending the liberty of all of us, even those that make mistakes in their lifetime and then try to turn themselves around. We're almost giving carte blanche now to the government to just determine whose property we can protect, whose property we're going to steal. It's a slippery slope.
You're absolutely right, and it's the legislature that's duly elected to make those laws. And if I'm elected the state's next Attorney General, I will be the state's attorney, and I will have a duty. I mean, I will swear that oath to uphold those laws. So, you can be an advocate. I mean, that's why I'm pushing for things like this, civil asset forfeiture. That's why, my freshman term, I worked on expanding expungements in the state of Michigan. I thought it was crazy that if you're convicted of just one crime, you're forever, going to be destitute because you're going to be a felon forever. So we expanded those, but it's the role of the legislature to make those laws. It's the role of the Attorney General to defend those and execute those laws.
And where does the federal government derive its authority to prosecute drug crimes? Where is it in the Constitution?
Well, and you got to talk to the federal government. I mean, the attorney general, but the
You're
attorney.
the Attorney General of the state of Michigan. If they come in, the feds come in to prosecute a crime that is not clearly defined as their role to do so, it is your role to kick them out. Now, there are other states where that happens. Will you be willing to do that? I think it's a pretty right question.
I don't know how the attorney general would have the authority to
Through their
physically
county
kick them out of the
sheriffs.
state.
That's what the county sheriffs are for. I mean,
I'm not
that's-
running for sheriff.
I understand that, but you can direct the county sheriffs to deal with federal agents that come in and enforce unconstitutional, when I say unconstitutional, I'm saying state constitution, crimes, crimes that are violating the state constitution. Or, excuse me, when the federal government comes in unconstitutionally by the state constitution, your job is to defend the state constitution. That's what I'm getting at. So how far are you willing to go as Attorney General? When I see other states that are, like for example, Obamacare, there were other states that filed against the federal government, the state attorney generals did all that. Are you willing to do those things?
I will tell you that depending on the issue, I mean, I would not be afraid to file a lawsuit in federal court to say that the federal government may be overreaching their authority. But I just want to be frank with you. If you want somebody, if you're looking for an attorney general who on day one is going to direct sheriffs to, I mean, that's up to them. They're duly elected. They can do, they can govern their counties the way that they want. But I am not going to give out a statement directing county sheriffs to arrest federal officials or what. I'm not going to do
Sure.
that. Yep.